maybe you're just thrown off by the fact that there's no drum. Wordle talk, man. Okay.
Good, yeah. Which is good because my sermon's a little long.
Shabbat Shalom. Tonight's opening melody is Lie, Lie, Lie. I think we can handle that one. It's really easy. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, la, lie, lie. Lie, 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 la, lie, lie. Lie, 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 la, lie, lie. Lie, 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 la, lie, lie. Lie, 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 la, lie, lie. Lie, 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 la, lie, lie. Lie, 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 la, lie, lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 la, lie, lie. Lie, 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 la, lie, lie.
Shabbat Shalom. On behalf of Cantor Hyman and Rabbi Maderer, who is celebrating her niece's bat mitzvah this weekend, and our congregational president, Hank Bernstein, on behalf of all of us, it is my pleasure to welcome you all, to welcome congregants, friends, and guests as we gather together to celebrate Shabbat, to welcome everyone on the live stream as well as everyone here in person in the sanctuary. And we have some wonderful special guests joining us up in the balcony. How you guys doing? You look good up there. All right. We have some wonderful students, teens from Temple Sholem in West Essex, along with their Director of Congregational Learning, Shari Rothstein. Welcome. It's so wonderful to have you with us. To ensure that we are praying together as one community tonight, let's take a moment, find someone you don't know, introduce yourself, and wish them a Shabbat Shalom. Lots of wonderful greeting. I love it. I love it. If you're on the live stream, make sure to introduce yourself and say hi. We do have a service to continue with, though. You're so excited. We are honored to have Margie Rosenbluth Phillips tonight to lead us in our Shabbat blessings. I will say it's a bit of a double honor tonight to have Margie, one here just to honor her father, Irv Saft, of blessed memory, who passed away this week, and we care so much for that family and honoring him, and also here celebrating, and a little clue to what I'll be speaking about later in the service, as Rodef Shalom's first ever bat mitzvah 50 years ago or so. Sorry. Candle lighting can be found on page 2. Amen. Oh, I think you got it. Oh, you got it. And we continue with the Kiddush on page 5. Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila למקראי קודש, זכר לציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת לחיים.
Students from West Side Elementary School near Santa Rosa, California, have created a pep talk, like pep talk, but spelled like TikTok, T-O-C, a hotline with sage advice and sound solutions for life's hurdles. When you call, which I did earlier today, you are directed to a number of prompts. If you're feeling mad, frustrated, or nervous, press 1, says the directory. One of the suggestions you'd hear after being transferred is a student, maybe in 2nd grade, saying, if you're feeling mad, you should take 3 deep breaths and think of things that make you happy. If you need a pep talk from kindergartners, press 3. That was one of my favorites. If you need to hear kids laughing with delight, press 4, the directory continues. Voice recordings from pupils aged 5 to 12 include this gem. If you're feeling up high and unbalanced, think of groundhogs. It's a good one. Or my favorite advice from the students, if you're sad or angry, get a cookie.
Always.
I think of Shabbat like our Jewish pep talk, a pep talk that we get each week, a chance to reflect, to gain some perspective, to be surrounded by a supportive community, and to hopefully leave the service feeling better than when we came in. And so we take a deep breath and release, turning from the pressures and the noise of the week to the peace and joy of Shabbat. We continue with the singing of our Kabbalat Shabbat songs, beginning with Yismechu Hashamayim on page 346. And so that we can better sing out, please rise.
ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. יירם הים, יירם הים, יירם הים ומלואו. 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 ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ.
If that doesn't get you into the Shabbat mood, I don't know what does. We
I'm
continue.
waiting for the cookie.
We continue on page 331 at the bottom of the page, Shir Hamalot, a song of ascent.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, umevorach. Shabbat Shalom umevorach. Shir Hamalot B'shu Adonai Et Shivat Zion Hayinu kechomim Az yemale schok pinu Ulshonenu rina Az yomru vagoyim Yigdil Adonai la'asoti mele Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shalom.
Turning back in our prayer books to page 20 and 21, with the joy of a wedding, we continue with Lecha Dodi, verses 1, 2, 5, and 9.
Lecha Dodi, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבורך, ישמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתחילה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה. סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה התעוררי כי באורך קומי אורי שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה.
Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time. Even at unlikely times and through unlikely places, there is no place on earth without the presence. We continue on page 28 with our call to worship.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Do you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Leolam Vaed. Yalla la la la, 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 yalla la la la.
The top of page 31, we read together. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. And on the middle of page 32, together, everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
Please be seated, page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך. וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אמת.
The top of page 39. We read together. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלך. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלך. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים. זה אלי ענו ואמרו, זה אלי ענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך באלים אדוני.
Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a broken will. Continue with the tefillah on pages 46 and following. Please rise.
Yai lai 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 lai, ya la 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 lai lai lai. Adonai sifatai tiftach Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Yalalai lai lai, 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 yalalai lai lai. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chaste Avot Ve'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'nehem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer, Umoshia Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol, Atah Rav LeHoshia, Mashiv HaRuach, Umorid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofe Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umkayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Baal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit, Umchaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atal hachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom yehalalucha Selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Please be seated. In a moment, we will be on page 60 with our prayer for peace, Shalom Rav, as we take time to ask God to grant abundant peace onto this entire planet, onto this world. We especially turn our hearts to the people of Ukraine and pray so desperately for peace in Ukraine. I will just draw your attention to page 6 in your service program, to an event coming up on Tuesday, March 2nd at 7 p.m., where we're going to have an opportunity to hear a very personal perspective around the Ukraine crisis from two of our congregants, Dmitry and Katerina, and to hear a little bit from them and hear about, what's going on and how we can help and how we can be partners with God in bringing peace to this world.
ישראל עמך תשים לעולם שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם תשים לעולם תשים לעולם.
We now take moments for silent prayer.
עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה עשה שלום עלינו ועל כל נשגו ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
In a moment, we will be on page 253 at the top of the page for the Misha Berach, our prayer for healing. First, the words of Rabbi Harold Kushner from his book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. We can't pray that God makes our lives free of problems. This won't happen, and it's probably just as well. And we can't ask God to make us and those we love immune to disease, because God can't do that. We can't ask God to weave a magical spell around us so that bad things will only happen to other people and never to us. People who pray for miracles usually don't get miracles. But people who pray for courage, for strength to bear the unbearable, for the grace to remember what they have left instead of what they have lost, very often find their prayers answered. If you are holding someone in your heart tonight in need of healing, I invite you to write their names in the chat or to speak their names aloud at this time.
Misha Berach Avoteinu
Amen. Amen. As is so often in life, our thoughts move from thoughts of brokenness and healing to thoughts of joy and celebration as we take a moment to recognize, to hakarat hatov, to notice the good around us as we prepare to sing our blessing of gratitude, the Shehechianu, on page 344. I would love to hear from you some wonderful things that you're grateful for this week. If you're on the live stream, please type into the chat. Tell us those wonderful things, birthdays, anniversaries, other things. Anyone in the sanctuary, feel free to yell it out. I know I see people who are back for the first time in quite some time. It was great to see so many of you in person that I haven't seen, to give people hugs. Anyone else got anything good they're celebrating? Give me something. What do you got, Benzione? You made travel plans for your 60th wedding anniversary. Oh, mazel tov to you and Jane. That's so exciting. Where are you headed?
We're heading to the Scandinavian country.
Ooh, Scandinavia. Sounds good. That sounds very good. Wonderful. Anyone else? Yeah, Meredith. Oh, when is it? Next week, your son's bar mitzvah. Mazel tov. We're so excited. I remember him just as a little whatever, and I can't believe he's 13 now. It's amazing. So exciting. What else? Anyone else celebrating something? Oh, happy birthday. Is it Ralph there? Happy birthday. So wonderful. 77. That's a good year. Well, you look
Sunset
great.
Strip?
Yeah, right? For all of these blessings and so many more, we offer thanks.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehecheyanu v'kiyimanu v'higi'anu lazman hazeh Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehecheyanu v'kiyimanu v'higi'anu lazman hazeh.
Amen. I don't read Teen Vogue very often. Good start, right? But when a congregant sent me an article from Teen Vogue about the 100th anniversary of the first public bat mitzvah ceremony in the U.S., I had to check it out. By the way, Teen Vogue is actually a pretty awesome magazine. Just saying. In the article, Isabel Lusk, a 17-year-old who writes beautifully, who celebrated her own bat mitzvah just 4 years ago, writes about a brave 12-year-old girl named Judith Kaplan, who exactly 100 years ago today was the first American girl to ever publicly celebrate a bat mitzvah, paving the way for women like Lusk to follow in her footsteps. Less than 2 years after women earned the right to vote, more on that later, Judith's father, Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, argued that Judaism should evolve to expand women's rights. And on March 18, 1922, their congregation gathered to watch this remarkable 12-year-old stand up in the men's section of her synagogue, publicly celebrate her entrance into adulthood and make history. But Judy wasn't the first, and certainly won't be the last Jewish woman to have a profound impact on Judaism and our greater society. Tonight, in honor of Women's History Month and the 100th anniversary of the first bat mitzvah, I'd like to share some stories of these brave, bold women who throughout Jewish history have often not been recognized to the extent that they should. Tonight, I hope to lift up their voices. I'm going to start with the Bible and begin with Miriam. Many of us know Miriam, the prophetess, Moses and Aaron's sister, who often does not get as much credit as her brothers. I want to share with you a midrash, a story from our rabbinic tradition that seeks to really lift up Miriam's role as a prophetess who spoke out. In the midrash, they ask a very interesting question. They begin by saying, who were Shifra and Puah, the midwives? And the rabbis say, Shifra and Puah were actually Miriam and Yocheved. Yocheved is Moses' mother. Very interesting. Some of you might have heard this midrash before. The midrash goes on to say, well, then why then was Miriam called Puah? And we're going to play with a little Hebrew here. And they say Miriam was called Puah because she rebuked Hofia Panim. It's the same root. She rebuked her father. What did she do to rebuke her father? Well, the story goes that after Pharaoh decreed that all the Jewish males should be thrown into the Nile River and killed, Miriam's father, Amram, who was actually a big leader in the Jewish community, said, why should we even be intimate with our wives anymore? Why should we even continue to procreate if Pharaoh is only going to kill them? Miriam stood up and said, no, you can't do this. And quote from the Midrash, she said, Father, your decree is even harsher than that of Pharaoh's. He only decreed against the males, but your decree is against both males and females, against all genders, all babies that could possibly be born. Pharaoh is an evil man, Miriam says, and it's doubtful whether his decrees will actually come to pass. But you are righteous, and your decrees may be fulfilled. And so, after that, Amram listened to his daughter, and he was again intimate with his wife, and who was born after that but the baby Moses. If it hadn't been for Miriam, Moses would have never existed, and our people may have never been saved. Jumping ahead a little in our Bible, we go to later in Tanakh to the book of Judges, where we learn about Deborah and Yael. The book of Judges is the period before the kingship in Israel, at sort of a lawless time, and they're called judges, but really they were more military leaders. From her seat in the shade of a palm tree, Deborah looked out upon the highlands of Israel. These dry hills were her people's home, and she could see that all was not well. In the valley below, armed bands preyed on Israelite peasants. Travelers and caravans, the lifeblood of her region, were too frightened to take the main roads. It was a time of chaos, a time that called for strong leadership. In answering this call, Deborah became a singular biblical figure, a female military leader. She then recruited a man, a general named Barak, to stand beside her. But Barak was scared to go to battle and said, I will only go to battle if you come with me, Deborah. And Deborah, perhaps playing on Barak's manhood, said, I will surely go with you nonetheless. The road on which you are going, though, will not lead to glory, for God will deliver our enemies into the hand of a woman. And that is what happened, because when the evil general Sisera sought refuge, he came to a woman named Yael. Little did he know, Yael was actually an assassin who worked for Deborah. I always like to say that Rabbi Mader's Hebrew name is Yael. And Yael, I don't say anything, Yael got Sisera drunk, and when he fell asleep, stabbed a tent peg through his head, killing him, and saving our Jewish people once again. The next woman I'd like to share with is Queen Esther. But actually, we already learned about her yesterday and the day before, so I'll skip that one. If you missed it, come to Purim next year. Jumping ahead a few more centuries, we come to the period of the rabbis and the Talmud. The Talmud is filled with male voices, and yet we get a glimpse of a couple amazing, amazing female scholars in our tradition. The most famous, perhaps, is a woman by the name of Bruriah, who was Rabbi Meir's wife. The story goes that there were hooligans in Rabbi Meir's neighborhood who caused him a great deal of anguish. Rabbi Meir then prayed that they should die. Rabbi Meir's wife, Bruriah, said to him, what is your thinking? On what basis do you pray for the death of these hooligans? And then, like an amazing Torah scholar that she was, she quotes scripture and she says, do you base yourself on the verse from Psalms, let sins cease from the land, which you interpret to mean that the world would be better if the wicked were destroyed? She said, but it's not written, let sinners cease. It's written, let sins cease. Therefore, one should pray for an end to their transgression, not for the demise of the transgressors themselves. And Rabbi Meir agrees with her and realizes he was wrong in that moment. Jumping ahead around 1,000 years or so, we get to the time of the Spanish Inquisition in the 16th century. And there was a woman named Doña Gracia Nasi, who as a young woman inherited her husband's fortune. After the Portuguese Inquisition was established in 1536, she was forced to flee Lisbon. After navigating dangerous political waters, the family eventually settled in Venice, where they continued to practice crypto-Judaism while maintaining a Catholic facade. After the Venetian court involved themselves in a family inheritance dispute, Gracia Nasi moved her family to Ferrara, where they were able to live openly as Jews for the first time. She was an active supporter of literary activities among the Jews and was instrumental in financing and organizing transportation and resettlement for conversos fleeing Portugal. Jumping ahead a few more hundred years, we get the amazing scholar and Philadelphian Henrietta Zold. Henrietta Zold was an educator, essayist, editor, social worker, and Zionist organizer. After studying at the Jewish Theological Seminary, she served as the executive secretary of Philadelphia's own JPS, Jewish Publications Society, editing and publishing many important works, including our own former Road of Shalom senior Rabbi Marcus Jastro's Talmudic Dictionary. But her greatest accomplishment was perhaps the creation of Hadassah, the women's Zionist group in the United States, fundraising and setting up hospitals, food banks, nursing schools, and social work programs. Zold's work helped create the medical, educational, and social service infrastructure that helped turn the dream of a Jewish state into a reality. Going ahead a little bit more to the late 1800s, we have Judith Salas Cohen, a name that maybe sounds familiar. We got a lot of Salas Cohens here in Philadelphia, and quite a few that belong to Road of Shalom. This Philadelphia author, editor, critic, and feminist brought her writing talents to bear on behalf of suffrage, featuring it among the topics she highlighted for a decade in the early 1900s as editor of the Jewish Exponent's weekly Womankind column. One example of one of these articles was called "Why Women Need the Vote." I learned about Salas Cohen and many other amazing suffragists from the RS Suffrage Project, a collaboration between Road of Shalom and Temple University's Feinstein Center. It's a project of study and learning designed to honor the 100th year anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, ensuring women's suffrage. The project goal is to understand the role Jews played in this early American social justice movement, with special emphasis on the roles RS congregants played. I'll encourage you once again to look to your service program on page 7, where you'll see information about a program coming up next month on Philadelphia's Jewish suffragists. And I really encourage you, if you'd like to learn more, it's going to be a fantastic program. And you can also check out our website, where there's really an amazing installation on the website where you can learn all about these incredible suffragists. And now, back to Judy. Judith Kaplan Eisenstein, whose story did not end at her 12th birthday. After her groundbreaking bat mitzvah, Kaplan Eisenstein, as she married Rabbi Ira Eisenstein, went on to a successful career in Jewish music. After studying at the Institute of Musical Arts, now Juilliard School, in New York, she attended JTS, the Jewish Theological Seminary's Teacher Institute, and Columbia University's Teacher College, where she earned a master's in music education in 1932. She later earned a PhD in the School of Sacred Music at Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion, where, of course, our own Cantor Hyman studied. Kaplan Eisenstein taught music pedagogy and the history of Jewish music at JTS, HUC-JRI, and the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College for many, many years. And in 1987, she created and broadcast a 13-hour radio series on the history of Jewish music. In 1992, at age 82, she celebrated a second bat mitzvah, surrounded by leaders of the modern Jewish feminist movement. And just over 50 years ago, Road of Shalom held its first bat mitzvah service. Although, as I've been told, they weren't quite ready to go so far as to call it a bat mitzvah. I believe it was called a service of affirmation. Sorry, Margie. And the first woman to bravely step forward was our own Margie Rosenbluth Phillips, who has served as a leader and role model in our community ever since. Lastly, because she's not here tonight, I can embarrass her. In 2007, Rabbi Jill Maderer became our senior rabbi, the first female senior rabbi of Congregation Road of Shalom in its 227-year history. In partnership with our senior staff, professional team, board of trustees, and so many involved congregants, Rabbi Maderer works passionately to build community and to lead us in our vision to create profound connections. She has taught us that our connections exist both within and beyond the walls of our synagogue. Rabbi Maderer often reminds us that the one stipulation Jewish law provides for the building of a sanctuary is the presence of windows to the outside. With that relationship to the world around us, the words of our prayers are influenced by the life of our city, and our experience of prayer inspires us to go forth into the world empowered by Jewish values. I am personally grateful for her mentorship, kindness, and visionary leadership. I'll close tonight with the words of Rabbi Regina Jonas, the first woman to be ordained as a rabbi. She writes, "God has placed abilities and challenges in our hearts without regard to gender. Each of us has the duty to realize those gifts God has given. We owe a debt of gratitude to the Jewish women who have realized those gifts over the centuries, who have challenged us, led us, and cared for our Jewish community. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. We turn back to our prayer books as we continue with Aleinu on page 282, followed by 287. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגובהי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. Yesh kochavim. There are stars up above. So far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. This week, our congregation observes yahrzeit for Margaret K. Abrams, Rosalind Adelson, Jenny S. Adler, Bella Alexander, Charles K. Bacharach, Reba Cates Bachman, Julie Baker, Beatrice Barg, Stephen Asher Berkowitz, Raymond Berman, Elizabeth Sophia Binswanger, Robert Binswanger, Frank Bowman, Myrna Brind, Alan Cohen, Benjamin Cohen, Hannah M. Cohen, Betty Dumoff, Celia Frank, Abraham L. Friedman, Simon L. Garfinkel, Charles David Gersten, Clara Cohen Glaubman, Edgar L. Gold, Louis Goldberg, Solomon G. Golden, Lillian M. Goldman, Fanny Goldsmith, Albert G. Gorson, Herman Greenberg, Lillian Y. Gritz, Harry J. Guberman, Max Heller, Benjamin Herron, Walter Herzberg, Leopold Hirsch, Sheldon Jakowski, Lee Jubileer, Beulah S. Kahn, Kenneth Kirschbaum, William Kirschenbaum, Leonard Kleeman, Bessie S. Cohn, Natalie Pincus Krieger, Bernard Krieger, Samuel Phillips Levine, Charles J. Levi, Simon Loeb, Sidney Lowenstein, Myra Mayer, Roger W. Muchnick Jr., Sarah Levinson Nissenson, Jane M. Oppenheimer, Jennifer Pincus, Ernst Pincus, Emily K. Price, Alexander D. Reinheimer, I. Bud Rockauer, Cecilia Hart Rosenthal, Moses Rosenzweig, Harry N. Rosinski, Sarah Rubin, David R. Soblosky, Ethel Salkowitz, Samuel P. Saunders, Sidney Lewis Shiro, Theodore Schmidt, Elsie Schwimmer, Earl S. Scott, Albert Segan, Betty Seidman, Albert Sharp, Fanny Silverman, Edith Silo, Stephen David Silverman, Norma Silverman, Usher Sclaver, Tessie Lang Sterling, Nanette F. Stern, Lena Sternberg, Fred Strauss, Michael Thornton, Beatrice G. Toll, Daniel Traum, Bernice Hirschman Tuman, Maureen Grace Tweston, Sarah Goldsmith Van Ulam, Sandra Roth Warshall, Rose Weissglass, Robert Weiss, Peggy L. Wallman, Louis Wallman, Phyllis F. Usum. And we add the names of those who've been taken from our midst, but not from our hearts in these most recent days, for whom we are observing Shiloshim, the 30 days of mourning. Erwin C. Saft. If you are observing Yahrzeit or Shiloshim for a loved one whose name was not mentioned, I invite you to write their names in the chat or to speak their names aloud at this time. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing. We turn to page 294 and rise for the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divrach rutei v'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon, uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'alam olmei olmaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shmei dekudisha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace and comfort to all who are bereaved among us, and let us say, Amen.
Ose shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen.
We wish you all Shabbat Shalom. If this is your first time with us here at Road of Shalom, I hope you'll introduce yourself to our wonderful membership manager, Stephen Scher, who's waving in the back there. And please join us for Oneg in the hallway after our benediction.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Ya'er Adonai panav eilecha v'chuneka Yisa Adonai panav eilecha v'yasem lecha shalom Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Ya'er Adonai panav eilecha v'chuneka Yisa Adonai panav eilecha v'yasem lecha shalom Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha
May God bless us and keep us.
Ya'er Adonai panav eilecha v'chuneka
May God's light shine upon us, and may God be gracious unto us.
Yisa Adonai panav eilecha v'yasem lecha shalom
May we feel God's presence within us always, and may we be granted God's most precious gift, the gift of peace. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will. Shabbat Shalom.